Greetings clay students. In this video I'm going to show you how I designed and constructed this cloud themed bonsai pot. I'll show you my process for creating a custom template and how to make a slab when our slab roller is down. To create a custom circle template you'll need some paper. I'm using butcher paper, a pen, a ruler, and some scissors. Make sure your paper is large enough to accommodate your diameter that you're trying to get. I'm working on making a 10-inch circle. And I'm going to fold my paper in half. I've just got a square piece of paper, so it's even on all sides. I'll fold it in half and turn it 90 degrees, fold it in half again. And now I'm going to start folding in half, but this time the axis is going to be on the diagonal. So the very middle of my circle is touching my left hand, and that's going to be the center of our circle. And I'm going to keep folding on that axis to create this triangle. About 2 folds. If I fold any more than this, the paper starts to bunch up and I'll get a little bit weirder of a shape. But this is nice and small. And now I can use my ruler to measure 5 inches. That's half of my 10-inch diameter that I want. And I'll just mark with my pen 5 inches. And I'll do a couple of these on the edge of the paper, in the middle of the paper, to just get a couple dash marks that are all the same length, and it creates a little bit of an arc that I can then trace over. So connect my dots, and that's going to be my line that I cut to create my circle. This method doesn't usually yield me a perfect circle, but it does the do for a quick custom sized circle if I don't have a ready-made circle laying around in the studio. All these templates I've made are in our template binder in the studio, which you are welcome to use and make copies of. There's a 10.5 inch circle and an 18 by 4 rectangle for the pot itself. Ta-da! Supplies I have handy for this project include my little serrated rib, my red rib, I've got a stiffer green rib here, my wooden knife tool, a finishing sponge, a needle tool, and a sharp knife, along with some water. I'm also always working on a board or a canvas to prevent my clay from sticking to my work surface. So I need to make a slab for this project, and most of the time we have our roller available, but when I was making this video we did not have it available. It had broken. So if you ever find yourself in the wilds needing to make a slab, this is the section of the video you want to watch. But I'm using a fresh bag of clay, and I've just cut off a significant chunk of it. I'm trying to make a fairly large slab, and I'm using my rolling pin to get it started. And then I just pick up the slab and I slap it onto the table. And it's a bit of a sweeping motion. Some people sweep to the side. I usually sweep kind of towards myself. And this stretches the clay. And you want to keep picking up the clay from different sides and pull and slapping it down towards yourself. And this will help stretch it out. You might notice you end up with a bit of a lumpier middle with thin sides, and that's normal. You can then still use your rolling pin to smooth it out and try and get it even. We also have yardsticks that you can use to put on either side of your slab, and that can help you control the thickness of your slab. You'll also need to make a slab that will fit 2 of your rectangle templates for the walls of your pot. And I recommend making both these slabs when you first come in to the studio so they can start drying in front of the fan a little bit. After I've let my slab set up in front of the fan for a little while so it's not quite as squishy and plastic, if you go to compress your clay and it looks like you're picking up gravel and scraping all the clay up, it needs longer in front of the fan. We need to rib it out and compress our clay to get those clay particles going in the same direction. We're moving it all around and they're facing all sorts of ways, and we need them to settle down and be friends again. So you want to use a rib tool and smooth across in 2 directions all over your slab and flip it over so you can treat both sides. The rib tool will remove some clay as you go, so make sure you're cleaning that off and not reintroducing little boogers back into your slab. Next, I'll go ahead and trace my template. I always trace the template. I don't cut right through my clay at the same time that my template is down, especially if I'm using a paper template as flimsy as this one. They're very delicate and they'll start to tear, so I'll just gently trace where I'm going to cut my clay, and then I'll use my sharper knife tool to cut away the extra clay that's around my circle. And I do this instead of trying to pull my circle out of the middle, just like cookies. When you make cookies, you need to leave your cookie shapes on the table and pull away the excess dough. After I've removed my excess cookie dough, I'm just working on thinning out the slab just a little bit more. Mine was on the thicker side, and I'm just using that same slab technique to slap the clay and make it a little bit thinner. And then I go over all my edges, my cut edges with my finger just to smooth them out. Later on, this edge will be shown, and so I don't want a hard square. I'd like a soft round edge that's going to be the bottom rim of my pot. For the walls of my pot, I've got a longer slab that I've made, and I'm of course going to use my rib to smooth and compress the clay on both sides on this one as well, after it's set up in the fan for a little bit. And I will use my template to trace 2 rectangles onto the clay. Again, I'll just use my needle tool to make a gentle tracing, and I don't have to get the full length, you'll notice, of my rectangle. I've made this rectangle longer than it needs to be, so you'll end up having some excess clay. Go ahead and cut them out and then separate them, and then I'll put these in front of the fan for a little bit longer to let them firm up so they can withstand being handled and set upright as the walls of our pot. After your base and walls have set up for a while in front of the fan to the point where they're less plastic, they're not as wobbly, and they can hold their shape a little bit better, you can go ahead and score your base, just the inner rim, and score one edge of each of your rectangles where they're going to connect to the base. So I just used my serrated rib to make my score marks, and then I used a little bit of water as my slip. And remember that these walls are actually longer than you need them to be, and this is on purpose, so I can cut them down to size, and that way they'll fit a lot better. Once they're fitting pretty closely, I'm going to go ahead and take my sharp knife and cut a 45-degree angle through both slabs at the same time. This ensures that they will be the same angle and they'll connect together much more smoothly and keep the shape of the pot that I want. So I'll do that on both sides, one and then the other. My knife isn't that long, so I need to do one, and the first one makes a little tracing on the slab behind it, and then I'll cut through the other one. And I haven't added my water yet, so I'm going to go ahead and add my slip so I can start attaching my walls to my base. And sometimes when I add my slip on top of my score marks, I need to score again because I've washed them away, and that's okay. Some folks go by the rule of score, slip, score again. And that's a good rule to follow to really ensure that you're making a strong connection for your clay. And before I add my second slab, I need to make sure that I slip and score my connection points for the two walls. And I'm going to position them so the butts of the angle cuts meet, so they overlap a little bit. So the inner edge of one side meets the outer edge of the other slab. And this allows a little bit to overlap, and that's kind of like your coil that will help you connect the two pieces together. If you make 90-degree cut between slabs like this and just try to butt them together, you end up with a divot where you're trying to, pull the clay into each other, and it'll look kind of funky. This way you've got extra clay there to smooth it out, and it will help keep your walls more consistent all around. Now I'm just using my wooden knife tool to clean up my seams a little bit. They've got some lumps here and there, so I'm just using my tool to smooth it out. Then I go over all the seams, the connections of the slab walls to the base with my wooden knife tool, and that helps compress that little corner. And I mentioned before that I have a little bit of extra clay in this project to allow for this kind of skirt base that I make, where I'm just lifting up the bottom edge of the pot so it creates a little rim at the base. This is just a decorative technique that I like to use. If you don't want to do this, all you need to do is just slice off that excess clay from the edge so it meets the walls of your pot, and then you can use your tools to smooth those out. But I just kind of fold it up with my hands and use my wooden knife tool to bring the skirt up a little bit closer and hug the pot a little bit more tightly. Next, I rolled out a couple of coils, just some small ones, about 1/4 inch, and I slipped and scored one side and then applied the coil to my inner seam where the base of my pot meets the walls. And this is an added support to help this connection stay strong, especially if you don't have that extra little skirt on the outside like I do. Doing the coils on the inside will add support to that connection. And I'll add the coil all around the inside and then use my tool to smooth it out and blend the seam. And you can use a rib if you want to make the seam more of a right angle. I usually leave it at kind of a slant. It's going to be the base of a flower pot, so I'm not too worried about how it looks on the inside since it's going to be covered with dirt. Finish it off with a little sponge, damp sponge, and just smooth everything out, get rid of any little crusties. You can also use a rib to even out some edges. And I'm not too worried about the top rim. I'm going to be manipulating it a lot, and I'm going to go ahead and smooth this out. So I'm just pinching with my fingers to bring the edge to a point rather than have that right angle straight edge from cutting the slab. I'm just pinching the rim together just like we did with the base slabs to smooth out the edges. Once you're happy with your rim, you're going to go ahead and start making your little tufts to make this pot look a bit more like a cloud. And the way that I do this is I start pressing from the inside of the pot out and making just the little bulbous tufts. And I'm going slowly and I'm pushing out with my hand on the inside and then pushing inward with my finger on the outside. And so my hand on the inside is in the middle of the little circle that I'm pushing out, and then my hands on the outside are giving support around the rim of the circle, and this helps keep its shape and push in those outer seams. If I only use my inside hand and push out, I won't have much shape or structure to my little cloud tufts. So the push and pull is very essential to this step, and you can see I'm smoothing out each of them as I go along. There's not a particular size that I'm trying to make for each of them. I'm fitting each one next to each other, kind of like cobblestones, making one tuft at a time and trying to mix them up, different sizes and shapes. Some of them are more circular than others, some of them are more oblong. I'll even do some where they kind of wrap up and make almost an L shape. And this just adds to the variety, and this makes it more like a natural looking cloud, because our clouds are not all uniform. They don't match on all sides. If you were trying to make more of an organized pattern with your little bulbs, I would recommend using a tool, either something that you found, or you can even pre-make and bisque fire a piece of clay, a little circle maybe, like an ongi tool if you've ever made one of those, and use that as your template for each of your circles. You could also cut out a paper template of a circle to use and sketch each of your circles, and then use your hands to press out more uniform circles. After I've got all my little cloud tufts, then I just use my finishing sponge to clean up my areas and remove any little fingerprints that I've left behind. That's all for this video. In the next one I will show you how I made some drainage holes along with some feet for the bonsai pot. Thanks for watching.